I should have known better than to meet him in public. That was my first mistake. My second was believing that a crowded coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon would keep him civil, that witnesses would act as some kind of shield against the venom I knew he'd been storing up for weeks. But James Rivera had always been good at wearing masks. To everyone around us, we probably looked like any other couple having a difficult conversation. Two people sitting across from each other at a small table near the window, steaming cups between them, voices low and measured. No one could see the way his hand gripped my wrist under the table. No one could hear the threats wrapped in whispers. "You think you can just ignore my calls, Sophia?" His smile never wavered, but his fingers dug into my skin hard enough to leave marks. "You think blocking my number changes anything? I own you. I've owned you for 3 years, and a piece of paper from some judge doesn't change that. The divorce papers. Final. Signed. Official as of 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks of freedom that felt more like borrowed time because James had a way of making promises, and he always kept them. Not the good ones, never those. But the threats? Those he delivered on with precision. James, please." My voice came out smaller than I wanted, barely above a whisper. "We're done." The lawyers said. I don't give a damn what the lawyers said. His grip tightened and I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from wincing. "You walked out on our marriage. You humiliated me in front of my family, my colleagues. You made me look weak, Sophia. And now you're going to pay for that." The coffee shop buzzed with afternoon energy. Laptops clicking, steam hissing from the espresso machine, indie music playing just loud enough to create white noise. A barista called out orders. A couple laughed at the table behind us. Life happening all around us while mine slowly crumbled. "I need you to leave me alone," I said, hating how my hands trembled. "I'm asking you nicely. Please just let me go." "Let you go?" He leaned forward, his cologne the same one he'd worn throughout our marriage making my stomach turn. "Touch her again and you won't walk out. That's what you told the court, right? That I was controlling? Abusive? You painted me as some kind of monster, when all I ever did was love you, take care of you, give you everything. Everything." The word tasted like ash. He'd given me a beautiful prison, designer clothes I didn't choose, a house I couldn't leave without permission, a life that looked perfect from the outside while slowly suffocating me from within. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "I'm rebuilding my life," I managed, trying to pull my wrist free. His grip only tightened. "I have a job now, my own apartment. I'm doing fine without." "Fine?" His laugh was cold, bitter. "You call working as a receptionist at some second-rate medical clinic fine? You had everything with me, Sophia. And now you're what? Living in that shithole apartment in Pilsen, taking the bus to work, eating ramen for dinner?" The fact that he knew where I lived, where I worked, what I ate, it sent ice through my veins. I'd been so careful. Changed my number, blocked him on everything, moved to a different neighborhood. But James had always been good at finding things. At finding me. "How do you know where I know everything, sweetheart." The endearment sounded like a curse. "I know you leave for work at 7:45 every morning. I know you stop at that coffee shop on 18th Street every Wednesday. I know you had lunch with your friend Rachel last week at that Italian place you love. I know you've been sleeping with your lights on because you're scared." He was right. I had been sleeping with the lights on, had been checking locks 3 times before bed, had been looking over my shoulder every time I walked down the street, because somewhere deep down, I'd known this moment was coming, known that James wouldn't just let me disappear into a new life. "You're watching me." It wasn't a question. "I'm reminding you that you can't hide from me." He finally released my wrist, but the absence of his touch felt more threatening than the grip itself. "When you walk out of here today, you're going to think about what I said. You're going to remember that divorce papers mean nothing, that restraining orders are just words on a page. And if you're smart, you'll come home, back where you belong, before this gets ugly." "It's already ugly," I whispered, His expression darkened. No, Sophia. Ugly is what happens when I lose my patience. Ugly is what happens when you make me do things I don't want to do. Ugly is… Excuse me. The voice came from behind James, smooth and controlled with an edge that made the air feel heavier. I looked up and saw a man standing beside our table. Tall, probably 6'2" or 6'3", with dark hair, sharp features, and a presence that seemed to command the space around him. He wore an expensive black suit, perfectly tailored, with a crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie. His eyes, dark and calculating, were fixed on James with an intensity that made my ex-husband's threats suddenly feel hollow. "This is a private conversation," James said, not bothering to look up. "Move along." "I don't think so." The man's voice remained calm, almost conversational, but there was steel underneath. "I heard your entire conversation. Every word, every threat, every detail about how you've been stalking this woman." James finally turned, and I saw him assess the stranger, size him up. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes should he back down or push back. James had always been the biggest guy in the room, used to intimidating people with his physical presence and his lawyer credentials and his family's money. But this man was different. He had something James didn't. Not just size or strength, but an aura of absolute certainty. Like he'd already decided how this was going to end, and was simply waiting for everyone else to catch up. "I said this is private," James repeated, his voice harder now. "Unless you want trouble, I suggest you…" "Trouble," the man smiled, but it was cold, predatory. "That's interesting. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one creating trouble. Harassing your ex-wife, admitting to stalking, threatening her in a public place. That sounds like trouble to me." "Ex-wife is generous," James snapped. "She's still mine. This is between us. It has everything to do with me now." The man pulled out his phone and tapped something on the screen. "See, I have this recording of your conversation, all of it. You admitting to stalking her, watching her apartment, following her to work, threatening her if she doesn't come back to you. That's interesting evidence, don't you think?" James's face went pale. "You can't record people without… Illinois is a two-party consent state, yes. But there's an exception for criminal activity. And what you just admitted to? That's criminal stalking, violation of a restraining order, harassment. Should I continue?" I stared at this stranger, my heart hammering. Who was he? Why was he helping me? And how had he known to record James's threats? James stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who doesn't like bullies." The man pocketed his phone. "Someone who heard a woman being threatened and decided to do something about it. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this coffee shop. You're going to delete whatever information you have about Sophia's location, her schedule, her life, and you're never going to contact her again. Not a call, not a text, not a surprise visit. Nothing. Do you understand?" "Or what?" James tried to sound tough, but I heard the uncertainty creeping into his voice. "You'll do what exactly?" The man stepped closer, and James actually took a step back. "Or I'll make sure this recording ends up in the hands of every prosecutor in Cook County. I'll make sure your law firm knows you're stalking your ex-wife. I'll make sure your family, your colleagues, everyone you've ever impressed with your perfect image, knows exactly what kind of man you really are. You can't, I can. And I will." The man's voice dropped lower, quieter, but somehow more threatening. "But that's just the legal route. You want to know what happens if you ignore me? If you keep stalking her, keep threatening her, keep making her feel unsafe?" James didn't respond. The coffee shop had gone quieter around us. People were watching now, sensing the tension even if they couldn't hear the words. "Then we have a different kind of conversation," the man continued. "The kind where you learn that lawyers and family connections mean nothing to certain people. The kind where you discover that money can't protect you from consequences. Do we understand each other?" The threat was clear even without specifics. This wasn't just some good Samaritan stepping in. This was someone with power, with resources, with the ability to back up everything he was saying. James looked at me, his expression twisted with rage and humiliation. "This isn't over, Sophia." "Yes," the stranger said flatly. "It is. Leave now, or I make the phone call that ruins your life. Your choice." For a long moment, James stood there, fists clenched, jaw tight. Then he grabbed his coat and stormed toward the door, knocking into a chair on his way out. The door slammed behind him, and suddenly I could breathe again. The stranger watched until James's car pulled away from the curb, then turned to me. His expression softened slightly, concern replacing the cold authority. "Are you all right?" I nodded automatically, even though I wasn't sure it was true. My wrist throbbed where James had gripped it. My hands were still shaking. My heart felt like it might explode from my chest. "Can I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the chair James had vacated. Yes, please." I was still trying to process what had just happened. He sat down, maintaining a respectful distance, and I got my first real look at him. Mid-30s maybe, dark eyes that missed nothing. A watch on his wrist that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Everything about him screamed wealth, power, control. "My name is Dante Marcello," he said, offering his hand. I shook it automatically. His grip was firm but gentle. Sophia Rivera. Well, I'm going back to my maiden name. Sophia Chen. It's good to meet you, Sophia, though I wish it were under better circumstances. He pulled out his phone again. "I want you to know that recording is real. I started it the moment I heard him threatening you. I'm going to send it to you, and I recommend you give it to your lawyer and the police. That's evidence of stalking and violation of a protective order." "I don't." I stopped, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Why did you help me?" "You don't even know me." Dante was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying me. "Let me ask you something. If you heard someone being threatened, the way you were just threatened, would you walk away?" "No." "But most people do." "I'm not most people." He slid a business card across the table. Simple, elegant, just a name and phone number. "I own several businesses in Chicago. Restaurants, real estate, security consulting. Part of what I do involves making sure people are safe. And what I heard today? That man is dangerous, Sophia. He's not going to stop just because I confronted him. Men like him never do." My stomach sank because I knew he was right. James would be furious about being humiliated in public. He'd want revenge. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. "I don't have money to hire security," I said quietly. "I can barely afford my apartment. I'm trying to rebuild after everything. I can't pay you for—" "I'm not asking you to pay me anything." Dante's voice was firm. "I'm offering to help. Free of charge. No strings attached. Because what I heard today was wrong, and I have the resources to do something about it." "Why would you do that?" "Nobody just helps people for free." "Some people do." He leaned back in his chair. "Look, Sophia, I understand you don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. But I want you to listen carefully. Your ex-husband admitted to stalking you. He knows where you live, where you work, your daily routine. He made threats. That recording proves all of it, but a recording won't stop him from showing up at your apartment tonight or tomorrow or next week. You need actual protection. The police will file a report, maybe arrest him if he violates the order again, but only after something happens. I'm talking about preventing something from happening." I looked at his card, at the elegant script, at the phone number that might represent either salvation or another kind of trap. I'd learned the hard way that men who offered to protect you often wanted something in return. That help came with conditions. That kindness was just manipulation, wearing a different mask. But I also remembered the way Dante had stood up to James, the way he'd recorded the conversation without asking my permission because he knew I'd need the evidence. The way he'd made James back down through sheer presence and credibility. "What kind of protection?" I asked carefully. "Someone watching your apartment building, making sure you get to and from work safely, monitoring whether your ex is violating the restraining order." And if he does, handling it before it becomes dangerous. Handling it how? Dante met my eyes. Legally. Through the proper channels. I have connections with law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, people who take domestic violence seriously. If James comes near you, we'll have evidence and the ability to act immediately. It sounded too good to be true. It probably was too good to be true. But sitting there in that coffee shop, my wrists still aching, my hands still trembling, I realized I was out of options. I couldn't keep living like this, sleeping with the lights on, jumping at every sound, waiting for James to make good on his threats. Okay, I said quietly. Okay. Thank you, Dante nodded. I'm going to give you a number to call. It's a direct line to someone on my security team. His name is Victor. Anytime you feel unsafe, day or night, you call that number. Understood? Yes. And Sophia? He waited until I met his eyes. I meant what I said to your ex-husband. This is over. He doesn't get to control your life anymore. You're safe now. I'm going to make sure of it. The certainty in his voice made me want to cry. When was the last time someone had promised to keep me safe and I'd actually believed them? Never. The answer was never. As Dante stood to leave, he paused. One more thing. Do you have somewhere else you can stay tonight? Just as a precaution? I know. Not really. My friend Rachel maybe, but I don't want to drag her into this. Then I have an apartment you can use. It's in a secure building, doorman, cameras, the works. Consider it temporary, just until we're sure your ex understands he needs to stay away. I should have said no. Should have been suspicious of this stranger offering me an apartment. But the thought of going back to my place, knowing James had been watching it, knowing he could show up at any moment, just for tonight, I agreed. Until I figure something else out, that's fine. Victor will meet us there and get you settled. As we left the coffee shop together, I caught our reflection in the window. Me, small and exhausted in my thrift store coat and worn jeans. Him, tall and commanding in his expensive suit. We looked like we came from different worlds. We probably did. But in that moment, Dante Marcello was the only thing standing between me and the nightmare James represented. And I was too tired, too scared, too desperate to question it. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it wears a $1,000 suit and speaks with quiet authority. Sometimes it offers protection without asking for anything in return. I didn't know if I could trust Dante Marcello. But I knew I couldn't survive James Rivera alone. So I took the hand extended to me and stepped into the unknown. The apartment Dante brought me to wasn't just nice, it was extraordinary. 23rd floor of a glass tower in River North, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline, furniture that looked like it belonged in an interior design magazine. The kind of place I'd only seen in movies or glimpsed through windows while walking past buildings I'd never be able to afford. This is temporary? I asked, standing in the middle of the living room, feeling completely out of place. I own the building, Dante said simply, as if that explained everything. Several units are kept available for business purposes. This one hasn't been used in months. It's yours for as long as you need it. Victor, the security person Dante had mentioned, arrived within 10 minutes. He was broad-shouldered, probably in his late 40s, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that put me slightly at ease. He did a sweep of the apartment while Dante showed me the basics, how to work the security system, where the spare keys were kept, the number for the building's front desk. The doorman is Marcus, Dante explained. He's worked for me for 8 years. Very reliable. No one gets up to this floor without clearance. You're listed as an authorized resident as of tonight, so you can come and go freely, but anyone trying to visit you will be stopped at the front desk. Even James? Especially James. Dante's voice hardened. I've already sent his photo to building security with instructions that he's not allowed on the property under any circumstances. If he tries to enter, they'll call the police immediately. Victor finished his sweep and joined us in the living room. Everything's clear. I'll be positioned in the lobby overnight. Miss Chen, here's my direct number. He handed me a card. Any concerns at all, you call me. I don't sleep much anyway. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, Victor said gently. This is what we do. Mr. Marcelo takes threats seriously, and what your ex-husband said today? That was serious. After Victor left, Dante showed me the rest of the apartment. One bedroom with a king-sized bed that looked like sleeping on a cloud. A bathroom with a walk-in shower and heated floors. A kitchen stocked with basics, coffee, bread, eggs, milk, even a fruit bowl on the counter. I had someone pick up some essentials, Dante said, catching my surprised expression. You shouldn't have to worry about groceries tonight. You've thought of everything. I try to. He pulled out his phone. What time do you need to be at work tomorrow? 8 o'clock. But I can take the bus, I don't need. Victor will drive you. He'll also wait in the area during your shift and bring you back here after work. Dante, this is too much. I'm grateful, but I can't have someone following me around. I need to be able to live my life. He was quiet for a moment, then gestured toward the couch. Can we sit? There's something I need to explain. We sat, maintaining careful distance between us. Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees, choosing his words carefully. Sophia, I heard what your ex-husband said. He's been watching you for weeks, maybe longer. He knows your patterns, your schedule, where you're vulnerable. Men like him, men who feel entitled to control their partners, they don't just give up because someone confronts them. They escalate. You don't know James, I said, even though part of me knew Dante was right. I know men like James. I've dealt with them before. His dark eyes met mine. I need you to understand something. What I'm offering isn't charity. It's not about making you dependent on me. It's about giving you space to breathe while we make sure he gets the message. A few weeks, maybe a month, just until he understands that there are consequences for violating the restraining order. And if he doesn't understand? Dante's expression went cold. Then the consequences become more severe. There was something in the way he said it that made me wonder exactly what kind of businessman Dante Marcelo was. The expensive suit, the building he owned, the security team at his disposal, the quiet authority that made even James back down at all, suggested someone with significant power. The kind of power that didn't come from legitimate business alone. But I was too exhausted to question it, too grateful to be somewhere James couldn't reach me. Too desperate for the safety Dante was offering to look too closely at the source. Okay, I said quietly. A few weeks. Until things calm down. Good. He stood. I should let you rest. You've had a traumatic day. But before I go, he pulled out his own business card, different from the one he'd given me earlier. This one had a handwritten number on the back. This is my personal cell. Anytime, day or night, if you need anything, or if you just need to talk, you call me. Understood? I took the card, my fingers brushing his. Why are you doing this? Really? Dante was quiet for a long moment. My mother was married to a man like your ex-husband. Before she met my father, before I was born, he controlled everything about her life, what she wore, who she could see, how she spent money. He never hit her, but he didn't have to. The threat was always there, hanging over everything. What happened to her? Her brother finally stepped in, threatened the husband, got her out, helped her divorce him. It took years for her to feel safe again, years to stop flinching at raised voices or unexpected touches. His voice was soft. She told me once that the hardest part wasn't the marriage itself, but the aftermath. The fear that he'd come back, the hypervigilance that made it impossible to relax. The way she'd trained herself to be small and quiet and agreeable because that's how she survived. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be sorry. She's strong now. Stronger than anyone I know. But she never forgot what it felt like to be helpless. And she made me promise that if I ever had the power to help someone in that situation, I would. He met my eyes. So I am. That's all. After Dante left, I stood in the apartment trying to process everything. This morning I'd woken up in my small studio, dreading the meeting with James, but hoping maybe, just maybe, I could convince him to leave me alone. Now I was standing in a luxury apartment, under the protection of a stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere like some kind of avenging angel. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city. Chicago glittered below me, millions of lights representing millions of lives being lived. Somewhere out there was James, probably furious, probably plotting his next move. But for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. Not exactly. The fear was still there, coiled in my chest like a living thing. But it was manageable now, contained by locked doors and security systems and a man named Victor in the lobby who didn't sleep much anyway. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Victor. Just confirming this number works. Everything okay up there?" I typed back, "Yes, thank you." Another buzz, this time from Dante's personal number. "Sleep well. Tomorrow we start making sure he never bothers you again." I wanted to respond, to thank him again, to ask the 100 questions crowding my mind. But I was suddenly overwhelmed with exhaustion. The adrenaline that had been keeping me upright crashed all at once, leaving me hollow and shaky. I made it to the bedroom, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed still fully clothed. The mattress was impossibly soft, the pillows like clouds. And despite everything, despite the surreal circumstances, and the lingering fear, and the uncertainty of what came next, I fell asleep almost immediately. For the first time in 6 weeks, I didn't dream of James finding me. I didn't wake up every hour checking the locks. I just slept, deep and dreamless and safe. Morning came too quickly. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar room. Then everything came rushing back: the coffee shop, James's threats, Dante's intervention, this apartment that felt like a temporary sanctuary. My phone showed 6:47 a.m. and 3 new messages. From Victor, "Good morning. I'll be ready whenever you are. No rush." From Dante, "There's coffee in the kitchen and eggs in the fridge. Help yourself to anything. Victor will take you to work and I'll check in this afternoon." From an unknown number, "You stupid bitch. You think your new boyfriend can protect you? You think I don't have friends too? This isn't over." My hands started shaking. James. He'd gotten a new number to text me because I'd blocked his old one. The message felt like poison, seeping through the phone screen and contaminating the safety I'd felt just moments before. I screenshot the text and sent it to Dante before I could overthink it. His response came within 30 seconds. "Forward it to Victor too. We'll handle it. Don't respond to him." Another message from Dante. "Are you okay?" I stared at that question. Was I okay? I was standing in a stranger's apartment, receiving threats from my ex-husband, about to have a security guard drive me to my minimum wage job at a medical clinic. Nothing about this was okay. But I also wasn't crying, wasn't paralyzed with fear, wasn't alone. "I'm okay," I typed back. "Just tired of being scared." "I know. That's going to change, I promise." I showered, using the expensive products someone had stocked in the bathroom, and changed into the clothes I'd worn yesterday. I'd need to go back to my apartment at some point to get more of my things, but the thought of returning there made my stomach clench. James knew that address, had been watching it. The idea of walking through that door, sleeping in that bed, felt impossible now. The coffee Dante had mentioned was already brewed, somehow staying warm in an expensive machine I didn't know how to operate. There was a note next to it in masculine handwriting. "Press the button on the left for regular, right for extra strong. Based on yesterday, I'm guessing you need extra strong." Despite everything, I smiled. He'd been paying attention. Victor met me in the lobby at 7:30, professional and friendly. The drive to the clinic was quiet, and he parked across the street in a spot with clear sight lines to the entrance. "I'll be here all day," he said. "You won't see me, but I'll be watching. Any problems, any concerns, you call." "Thank you, Victor." "No thanks needed, Miss Chen. This is what we do." Work was a welcome distraction. The clinic was always busy, mostly low-income patients who couldn't afford private doctors, people who needed help and couldn't pay much for it. My job as a receptionist meant checking people in, handling insurance paperwork, managing the phone lines. It wasn't glamorous and it didn't pay well, but I liked helping people. Liked feeling useful. Around 11 a.m., Dr. Patel, one of the physicians I worked with, stopped by my desk during a rare, quiet moment. "Sophia, is everything all right? You seem distracted today." "I'm fine," I lied automatically. She studied me with the same careful attention she gave her patients. "I've noticed the bruises on your wrist, and you jump every time the door opens. If you need help, I'm handling it," I said more sharply than intended. Then softer, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap. I'm just going through something right now." "Doctor," Patel's expression softened. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. And if you're in danger, there are resources. Shelters, legal advocates, people who specialize in—" "I know. Thank you. Really." I managed to smile. "I appreciate it." She nodded and moved on, but I felt her concern lingering. How many patients had she seen over the years with bruises they couldn't explain? How many women sitting in this waiting room were trapped in situations like mine? At lunch, I sat in the break room picking at a sandwich I'd grabbed from the vending machine when my phone rang. "Dante, how's your day going?" he asked. "Busy. Normal. Victor's been texting me every hour to check in. He's thorough. That's why I trust him." A pause. "I wanted to update you. I had my lawyer file a motion this morning regarding your ex-husband's violation of the restraining order. We included the recording from yesterday, the text message from this morning, and documentation of his stalking behavior. That fast? I have good lawyers. They're also filing for an emergency hearing to modify the order, increase the distance he has to maintain, add electronic monitoring, penalties for violation. With the evidence we have, it should be approved. James has good lawyers too," I said quietly. "His father is a partner at one of the biggest firms in Chicago. They've gotten him out of trouble before. I'm aware. I looked into his background last night." Dante's voice hardened. "James Rivera, 34, associate at Hammond & Associates, specializing in corporate law. 3 complaints filed against him by previous girlfriends, all mysteriously dropped. A sealed juvenile record for assault that his father's connections made disappear. A pattern of controlling behavior that everyone chose to ignore because of his family's influence. You found all that in one night? I have resources. And I wanted to know exactly who we're dealing with." His tone shifted, becoming almost gentle. "Sophia, I need you to understand something. Men like James, men with money and connections, they're used to getting away with things. They think the rules don't apply to them, but they're also cowards. They only fight battles they think they can win. And right now, with the evidence we have, he can't win this one. He'll be furious, humiliated. That makes him more dangerous, not less." "I know, which is why Victor's there. Why you're staying somewhere safe. Why we're building a case so airtight that any judge in Cook County will throw the book at him if he comes near you." I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the system would work this time, that James would finally face consequences. But I'd been disappointed before. Had watched James charm his way out of situations that should have ended his career. Had seen his father make phone calls that made problems disappear. "What if the legal route doesn't work?" I asked. Dante was quiet for a moment. "Then we explore other options." "What kind of options?" "The kind that make absolutely certain he understands you're off limits. Permanently." There it was again, that hint of something darker beneath Dante's polished exterior. The suggestion that he had methods beyond lawyers and restraining orders. Part of me should have been frightened by that implication. Instead, I felt something like relief. "I should get back to work," I said, glancing at the clock. "Of course. Call me if anything feels off. If you need anything at all." "Dante?" I paused. "Thank you. For everything. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know how else to. You don't need to thank me, Sophia. Just focus on getting through each day. That's enough. The afternoon passed slowly. Between patients, I found myself watching the door, half expecting James to burst through despite the restraining order, despite Victor's presence across the street. But he didn't come. The day ended without incident, and Victor was waiting exactly where he'd promised to be. On the drive back to the apartment, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Enjoy your fancy apartment while it lasts. Your boyfriend can't watch you every second. Eventually you'll be alone. And when you are, I'll be there. I showed it to Victor when we stopped at a red light. He read it, his expression hardening. Forward that to Mr. Marcello and me, he said. And Miss Chen? He's trying to scare you. That's all this is. Empty threats meant to keep you afraid. Don't let him win. But, as we pulled into the building's underground garage, I couldn't shake the feeling that James was right about one thing. Eventually, I would be alone. Dante couldn't protect me forever. Victor couldn't follow me everywhere. At some point, the security would have to ease. The vigilance would have to lessen. And when it did, what would stop James from making good on his promises? Dante was waiting in the apartment when Victor and I arrived. He'd let himself in using a key he apparently had, and for a moment I felt a flash of anxiety, another man with access to my space, another person who could enter without permission. But then he turned, and I saw the takeout bags on the counter, the wine bottle breathing on the table, the careful way he'd maintained distance from my personal space even though this was technically his apartment. I hope you don't mind, he said, reading my expression. I thought you might be tired of eating alone, but if you'd prefer privacy, I can leave. The food is yours either way. No, it's okay. Stay. And I meant it. The thought of sitting in this beautiful apartment by myself, jumping at every sound, replaying James's texts in my mind that felt worse than sharing a meal with Dante Marcello. Thai food? He said, unpacking the containers. I took a guess that you might like it. But I also got Italian and sushi, so you have options. You brought 3 different cuisines? I wanted to make sure you had choices. He said it so simply, like it was obvious. You've had so little choice lately. Seemed important. That observation, the way he understood what I needed, even when I didn't made my throat tight. I blinked back unexpected tears and busied myself getting plates from the cabinet. We ate at the dining table, the city lights twinkling below us through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Dante asked about my day, about my work at the clinic, about the patients I saw. I found myself talking more than I had in months, telling stories I hadn't realized I'd been storing up. About Mrs. Rodriguez, who came in every week with a different complaint but really just wanted someone to talk to. About the teenager with asthma who couldn't afford his medication, and how Dr. Patel found a way to get it for free. About the small satisfactions of helping people navigate a healthcare system that seemed designed to confuse and frustrate. You're good at what you do, Dante observed. I can tell by the way you talk about it. You care about those people. They're good people who didn't get fair chances. They remind me that I'm not alone in struggling. I paused. Is that what you do? With your businesses? Help people? Some of my businesses, yes. I own several apartment buildings that have rent-controlled units. Restaurants that employ people who might not get jobs elsewhere. Immigrants, people with records, those who need second chances. Security consulting that sometimes means protecting people who can't afford traditional bodyguards. That's not standard business practice. No, it's not. He refilled my wine glass. But I learned a long time ago that having power means nothing if you don't use it for something more than accumulating more power. My grandfather built our family's fortune through methods I'm not proud of. My father expanded it. I'm trying to transform it into something legitimate, something that actually helps people. Our family's fortune, I repeated. How much are we talking about? Dante smiled slightly. Enough that hiring Victor to watch over you doesn't impact my budget. Enough that this apartment sitting empty is just a line item. Enough to make sure that when I promise to protect you, I have the resources to back it up. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. And the other part? I asked carefully. The part that's not about legitimate businesses and helping people? The part that made James back down so quickly? Dante was quiet for a long moment, studying me. What do you want to know, Sophia? I hesitated, not sure how to ask. Are you connected? To the mob? To organized crime? To whatever it's called? My family has history in Chicago. Complicated history that goes back 3 generations. Some of that history involves activities that weren't legal, connections that weren't legitimate. I've spent the past 10 years trying to move us away from that legacy. He met my eyes. But yes, there are still aspects of my life that exist in gray areas. Still people who know my name and what it represents. Still resources I can access that don't come from boardrooms and business contracts. Should I be afraid of you? I hope not. I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. Never used my power against innocent people. Never crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. He leaned back in his chair. But I understand if this changes things. If you'd prefer to keep your distance from someone like me, I'll still make sure you're protected. That doesn't change. But I won't force my company on you if it makes you uncomfortable. I thought about that. About what it meant to be sitting across from a man who'd just admitted to having mob connections. A man who spoke casually about gray areas and deserving it and lines that couldn't be uncrossed. I should have been frightened. Should have thanked him for his help and asked him to maintain professional distance. Should have recognized that trading one dangerous man for another, even one who seemed kind, was a terrible idea. But I didn't feel afraid. What I felt was safe, seen, protected in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with genuine care. I'm not uncomfortable, I said finally. I'm grateful. And maybe that makes me naive or stupid or too damaged to make good choices. But Dante, you're the first person in 3 years who's actually helped me. Who's done something instead of just offering sympathy and walking away. So no, I'm not going to keep my distance. Not unless you want me to. His expression softened. I don't want you to. We finished dinner in comfortable silence, and afterward, Dante helped me clean up, even though I insisted he didn't have to. As he was preparing to leave, he paused at the door. Sophia, I need to tell you something. James's father reached out to one of my business associates today. He's trying to figure out who I am, why I'm involved, whether he can leverage his connections against me. My stomach dropped. That's exactly what I was afraid of. His father has judges in his pocket, police chiefs who owe him favors. He'll make your life difficult if you keep helping me. He'll try. Dante agreed. But he'll discover pretty quickly that his influence is more limited than he thinks. The families I'm connected to, they don't take orders from corporate lawyers, no matter how powerful. If anything, his attempts to intimidate me will only make things worse for James. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Dante stepped closer, his dark eyes intense. Sophia, I'm not going to get hurt, and neither are you. This thing with James, it ends with you free and him understanding that there are consequences for his actions. That's not negotiable. After he left, I stood by the windows looking out at the city again. Somewhere out there, James was plotting. His father was making calls. Forces were aligning that I didn't fully understand and couldn't control. But for the first time in years, I wasn't facing those forces alone. I had Dante Marcello. And somehow, impossibly, that made all the difference. The next 2 weeks developed a strange rhythm. Victor drove me to work every morning and waited nearby all day. Dante checked in daily, sometimes with texts, sometimes with calls, occasionally showing up at the apartment with food and conversation. I slept better than I had in months, the security of the building and Victor's presence allowing me to finally relax. James sent messages from various numbers, all threats, all attempts to frighten me back into compliance. We forwarded each one to Dante's lawyer, building a file that grew more damning by the day. The emergency hearing for the restraining order modification was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Dante insisted on coming with me, along with his lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine Torres, who specialized in domestic violence cases. "We have 17 documented violations," Catherine explained as we sat in the courthouse hallway waiting to be called. "Text messages, confirmed stalking at your workplace, attempted contact through third parties. With the recording from the coffee shop and the pattern of escalation, Judge Morrison should grant everything we're asking for." "And if James's father's connections matter?" I asked. "Then we have Judge Morrison's daughter's safety to consider," Dante said quietly. "She's currently living in one of my buildings, in a rent-controlled unit she couldn't afford otherwise. The judge isn't corrupt, he's genuinely fair. But he also understands reciprocity." "You planned that?" "I prepare for contingencies." He met my eyes. James's father isn't the only one with connections. When we were called into the courtroom, I saw James for the first time since the coffee shop. He looked wrong, somehow smaller, less intimidating in his expensive suit. His lawyer, a distinguished man in his 60s who was probably costing a fortune, whispered urgently in his ear as we entered. James's eyes found mine, and I saw fury there, barely contained, but also something else, fear. He was afraid of what was happening, of losing control, of facing actual consequences. Judge Morrison reviewed the evidence methodically. The recording from the coffee shop, the text messages, Victor's sworn statement about James's attempted approach to the clinic, the documented history of previous complaints from other women. "Mr. Rivera," the judge said finally, his voice stern, "you've violated the restraining order 17 times in 2 weeks. You've engaged in stalking behavior, made threatening communications, and attempted to contact Miss Chen through intermediaries. This pattern demonstrates a clear disregard for this court's authority and a danger to Miss Chen's safety." James's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client has been under extreme emotional distress due to the dissolution of his marriage. He's since sought counseling and—" "Your client has terrorized his ex-wife," Judge Morrison interrupted. "The recordings alone are sufficient to file criminal charges. The fact that we're discussing modifications to a protective order rather than incarceration is a courtesy I'm extending because this is your first appearance before me on this matter. Don't test my patience." The judge granted everything Catherine had requested. The distance James had to maintain increased to 500 yards. Electronic monitoring via GPS ankle bracelet for the next 6 months. Any further violations would result in immediate arrest and prosecution. James's face went white as the terms were read aloud. "Do you understand these conditions, Mr. Rivera?" Judge Morrison asked. "Yes, Your Honor," James managed, his voice tight. "Then I suggest you follow them precisely. Because if Miss Chen or her representatives appear before me again regarding your behavior, you won't be walking out of this courthouse. Am I clear?" "Yes, Your Honor." As we left the courtroom, I felt something release in my chest. Not complete freedom. I knew James well enough to know he was seething, planning, waiting for an opportunity. But for the first time, there were real consequences, real limitations, real accountability. James caught up to us in the parking garage, his lawyer trying unsuccessfully to hold him back. "Sophia, wait, please. Can we just talk for a minute?" Victor moved immediately to block his path, but Dante held up a hand, stopping him. I turned to face James, Dante beside me, solid and protective. "We have nothing to talk about," I said, and was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I'm sorry, okay? I lost control. I was hurt and angry, and I said things I didn't mean." His eyes were pleading, desperate. "But we can fix this. We can go to couples counseling, work through our issues. I still love you, Sophia. Doesn't that matter?" "No," I said simply. "It doesn't." "How can you say that? After everything we had together, everything I gave you, everything you took from me," I corrected. "My confidence, my independence, my sense of safety. You spent 3 years making me small enough to control. I'm done being small, James. I'm done being afraid. We're over. Accept it and move on. This is because of him, isn't it? James glared at Dante. You think he's better than me? You know what he is? What his family does? He's a criminal, Sophia. He's done tolerating your bullshit, Dante said, his voice cold. You have a GPS monitor on your ankle and a judge who's watching for any violation. I suggest you get in your car, drive home, and learn to live with the fact that Sophia isn't yours anymore. She never was. You can't keep her locked away forever. Eventually she'll be alone. And when she is, then you'll still stay 500 yards away, Dante interrupted. Because violating that order means jail time. And trust me, James, your father's connections won't help you survive Cook County Jail. But my connections? They'll make sure every single person in there knows exactly what you did to earn your spot. James paled. The threat was clear and apparently credible enough to make him back down. He looked at me one last time, and I saw his expression shift from anger to something uglier, hatred mixed with humiliation. You'll regret this, he said quietly. Both of you. Only if you violate the order, Catherine Torres said, stepping forward. She'd been standing back, letting us handle it, but now she moved into professional mode. And Mr. Rivera, I want to be very clear. I have copies of every text message, every documented violation, every piece of evidence showing your pattern of abuse. If anything happens to my client, anything at all, I will ensure that evidence reaches every prosecutor, every judge, every media outlet in Chicago. Your reputation, your career, your family's name will be destroyed. Do you understand? James didn't respond, just turned and walked away, his lawyer hurrying after him. I watched him go, watched his car pull out of the parking garage, and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Victory. Not complete, not permanent, but real. That evening, Dante took me to one of his restaurants, a small Italian place in Little Italy with checkered tablecloths and candles on every table. The owner, a woman named Rosa, who had to be in her 70s, greeted Dante with a hug and rapid Italian that made him laugh. She says you're too skinny. He translated, and that I should have brought you here sooner. She's going to make sure we're properly fed. Rosa wasn't kidding. Course after course appeared bruschetta, pasta, chicken marsala, tiramisu, each dish better than the last. Around us, other diners chatted and laughed, creating a warm bubble of normalcy that I'd been missing. This place is wonderful, I said, savoring the tiramisu. It was my grandmother's restaurant. She opened it 60 years ago with money she saved working as a seamstress. When she died, she left it to Rosa, who'd worked here for 30 years. I technically own the building, but Rosa runs the place. She won't let me change anything. Why would you want to? Exactly, he smiled. Some things are perfect the way they are. They don't need improvement or modernization. They just need to be protected. The way he said it, looking at me, made my breath catch. Dante, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. What happens when James's GPS monitoring ends, when the heightened security eases, when I eventually have to go back to living my normal life? He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. By then, we'll have established a pattern. 6 months of him complying with the order. 6 months of documented good behavior. If he violates it after that, the consequences will be severe enough that he won't risk it. And if he's stupid enough to try anyway. Dante's expression hardened. Then we handle it. Permanently. What does permanently mean? It means I have resources beyond the legal system. Methods that ensure someone understands they need to disappear from your life completely. Not violence, he added, seeing my expression. Just leverage. Information that makes continuing to harass you more costly than walking away. You'd blackmail him? If necessary, yes. His father has secrets. James has secrets. Everyone with power and privilege has something they don't want exposed. I'm very good at finding those things and using them strategically. I should have been uncomfortable with this conversation. Should have objected to the casual way Dante discussed blackmail and leverage and permanent solutions. But all I felt was relief that someone was finally taking James seriously, finally treating the threat he represented as real. "I don't want you to do anything illegal," I said carefully. "I don't want you to risk yourself for me. What I'm risking is minimal compared to what you've already survived. And Sophia?" He reached across the table and took my hand. "I want you to understand something. This isn't just about protecting you anymore. I care about you. These past 2 weeks, getting to know you, seeing your strength, hearing about your work and your life, I care about you. And when I care about someone, I make sure they're safe. That's who I am." My heart hammered in my chest. "Dante, I don't know if I'm not asking you to be ready for anything," he said gently. "I'm just being honest about where I stand. No pressure, no expectations. Whatever happens between us or doesn't happen, you'll still have my protection. You'll still be safe. That doesn't change." I looked at him across the table, this complicated, dangerous, impossibly kind man who'd appeared in my life at exactly the right moment. A man with mob connections and legitimate businesses. A man who spoke casually about blackmail but also made sure I had choices for dinner. A man who terrified my abusive ex-husband but made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. "I care about you too," I admitted quietly. "I don't know what that means yet. I don't know if I can trust my own feelings after everything with James. But I care about you. And that terrifies me almost as much as James does." "Why?" "Because what if I'm just replacing one dangerous man with another? What if I'm so desperate to feel protected that I'm not seeing clearly? What if you're exactly where you need to be?" Dante interrupted gently. "What if for once, you're not making a mistake? What if someone actually wants to take care of you without taking anything in return? That's not how the world works." "Maybe not, but maybe we get to write our own rules." He squeezed my hand. "No rushing, Sophia. No pressure. We take this at whatever pace feels right to you. And if that pace is glacial, if it means we're just friends who have dinner occasionally, then that's enough. You're enough." Tears pricked my eyes. When was the last time someone had said I was enough? Not too much, not too little, just enough exactly as I was? We finished dinner and Dante drove me back to the apartment. At the door, he paused. "I'm going to be out of town for a few days. Business in New York that I can't avoid. Victor will still be watching the building, and I'll have someone else covering during the day. But if you need anything, you call me, day or night. The fact that I'm in New York doesn't change that I'm available." "Okay. Thank you." He hesitated, then leaned forward and kissed my forehead. Gentle, chaste, full of promise rather than demand. "Sleep well, Sophia. You're safe." "I promise you're safe." After he left, I stood in the apartment thinking about his words. You're safe. You're enough. We write our own rules. For 3 years with James, I'd felt like I was slowly drowning, gasping for air, reaching for help, finding none. And then Dante had appeared and thrown me a lifeline I was still learning to trust. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. "Thank you for dinner, for your honesty, for giving me a chance to prove that not everyone will hurt you." I stared at that message for a long time before responding. "Thank you for seeing me, for actually helping instead of just sympathizing, for making me believe I might actually be okay." His response was immediate. "You're not just okay. You're extraordinary. Sleep well." I smiled despite everything. Despite James and the GPS monitor that still meant he was out there somewhere. Despite my uncertain future and complicated feelings. Despite every reason I had to be afraid. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was beginning to believe I might actually live again. Dante had been in New York for 3 days when everything fell apart. It started with a phone call to the clinic. I was processing insurance forms when the receptionist phone rang, the caller ID showing unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Comprehensive Care Clinic. This is Sophia." Heavy breathing. Then James's voice, slurred and angry. "You think you won, don't you? You think your boyfriend and his lawyers and that fucking ankle monitor mean you're free? My blood went cold. James, you're violating the restraining order by calling me. I'm hanging up and reporting this. Report it. I don't care anymore. My career is over, Sophia. Hammond fired me this morning. Said the GPS monitoring and court appearances were incompatible with the firm's reputation. My father won't even take my calls. Everything I built is gone because of you. Because of your choices, I corrected, gesturing frantically to Dr. Patel, who'd just walked past. She saw my expression and immediately understood something was wrong. You did this to yourself, James. You need to hang up before what? Before I get in more trouble? I'm already destroyed. You took everything from me. My job, my reputation, my future. So I'm going to take something from you. The line went dead. My hands shook as I immediately called Victor. He answered on the first ring. James just called the clinic. He's drunk or high. I couldn't tell which. He said he's going to take something from me. Victor, he sounded, I'm 3 minutes away. Don't leave the building. Lock yourself in the office. I'm calling Mr. Marcello now. Dr. Patel had already moved into action, locking the clinic's front door and pulling me into her private office. What's happening? My ex-husband. He just made threats. My security is on the way. Should I call the police? Yes. Tell them James Rivera is violating a restraining order and made verbal threats. They have all the background already. While Dr. Patel made the call, my phone rang. Dante. I answered immediately. Sophia, Victor just told me. Are you safe? I'm locked in Dr. Patel's office. The clinic's front door is locked. Victor's almost here. I'm getting on a plane right now. I'll be there in 2 hours. His voice was tight, controlled, but I heard the fury underneath. Listen to me very carefully. James is desperate, which makes him dangerous. He's lost everything, which means he has nothing left to lose. That GPS monitor tells us where he is, but it doesn't stop him from getting there. Do not leave that building until Victor or the police arrive. Do you understand? Yes. If James shows up before they do, if he tries to get in, you run. You find a back exit. You hide. You do whatever you have to do. Don't try to reason with him. Don't try to calm him down. Just survive. Can you do that? Yes. My voice cracked. Dante, I'm scared. I know. But you're strong. Stronger than you. Realize. And you're not alone. Victor's almost there. The police are coming. I'm coming. You just need to hold on a little longer. Through Dr. Patel's office window, I saw movement in the parking lot. A silver Audi James's car. My heart stopped. He's here. Dante, he's in the parking lot. Where's Victor? I don't wait. There's another car pulling up. Black sedan. That's Victor. Stay on the phone with me. Tell me everything you see. I watched through the window as James got out of his car, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. Definitely drunk or high. He started toward the clinic entrance just as Victor emerged from his vehicle. Victor's intercepting him. I narrated. They're talking. James is yelling, pointing at the building. Victor's blocking his path. Good. Victor knows what to do. The police should be there any minute. But James suddenly lunged forward, trying to push past Victor. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. Victor moved with practiced efficiency, redirecting James's momentum and putting him face first against the hood of the Audi. In seconds, James was restrained, his arms behind his back, Victor's weight keeping him pinned. Victor's got him. James is restrained. Stay inside until the police have him in custody. Don't go out there, Sophia. Not even to watch. But I couldn't look away. James was screaming now, his words muffled by distance and the glass but clearly furious. Spittle flying, face red, every inch the violent man I'd always feared he could become. 2 police cars arrived, sirens wailing. Officers approached cautiously, and Victor spoke with them briefly before they took over, cuffing James and reading him his rights. Even handcuffed, James fought them, thrashing and shouting until they finally got him into the back of a patrol car. They're taking him away, I said quietly. It's over. This part is over, Dante corrected. But Sophia, he violated the restraining order. He made threats. He attempted to physically assault Victor to get to you. With his GPS data showing he came directly to your workplace, the judge is going to revoke his bail. He's going to jail, probably for a while. You don't sound happy about that. I'm relieved you're safe. But men like James don't accept defeat gracefully. Even in jail, he'll have access to phones, to visitors, to the outside world. We need to be prepared for him to escalate in other ways. After the police left with James, I gave my statement to the officers who'd stayed behind. Doctor, Patel closed the clinic early, insisting everyone go home after the trauma of what had happened. Victor drove me back to the apartment, his usual professional calm slightly shaken. I'm sorry, miss. Chen, I should have anticipated he might show up at your work. Should have been positioned closer to the entrance. You stopped him, Victor. If you hadn't been there. I couldn't finish the sentence. Mr. Marcello's plane lands in 90 minutes. He wanted me to tell you. He'll come straight to the apartment. I nodded, exhausted and shaky. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard, leaving me hollow and fragile. Back at the apartment, I tried to shower, to wash away the feel of James's presence, his threats, his rage. But I couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop replaying that moment when he lunged at Victor, when I saw the violence I'd always known lurked beneath his surface finally made visible. When Dante arrived, I was sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket despite the warm apartment, unable to get warm. He took one look at me and crossed the room, pulling me into his arms without asking permission. You're safe, he murmured into my hair. He can't hurt you anymore. I promise you're safe. And something in me broke. All the fear I'd been holding back, all the terror and exhaustion and pain from 3 years of abuse and 6 weeks of running, it all came crashing out at once. I sobbed into Dante's chest, great heaving cries that left me breathless and raw. He didn't try to calm me down or tell me it was okay. He just held me, solid and steady, while I fell apart. His heartbeat was a constant rhythm against my ear, his presence an anchor in the storm. When I finally stopped crying, my throat raw and my eyes swollen, Dante gently wiped my face with his thumbs. Better? He asked softly. I don't know. Maybe? I laughed, a broken sound. I thought I was strong, thought I could handle this. But when I saw him today, when I heard that rage in his voice, I realized how close I came to, but you didn't. You locked yourself in a safe room. You called for help. You survived. That's not weakness, Sophia. That's courage. It doesn't feel like courage. Courage never does. It feels like terror that you push through anyway. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. I spoke with Catherine on the flight back. The DA is filing multiple charges: violation of restraining order, stalking, attempted assault, making terroristic threats. With his GPS data proving he went directly to your workplace, with Victor's testimony, with the recorded phone call, James is looking at serious prison time. How much time? 2 to 5 years, possibly more depending on how the charges stack. And with his behavior today, no judge is going to grant bail. He'll sit in county jail until trial, which could be months away. 2 to 5 years. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like a temporary reprieve. Because even 2 to 5 years eventually ended. And when it did, would James come back angrier? More determined? More dangerous? What are you thinking? Dante asked, reading my expression. That even 5 years isn't forever. That eventually he gets out. And when he does, he'll have spent years understanding that actions have consequences. He'll have had time to move on, to accept that you're not his anymore, to build a different life. Or he'll have spent years planning revenge. Dante was quiet for a moment. There's another option. What option? One that ensures he never bothers you again, permanently. I pulled back slightly to look at him. What are you talking about? James's father has been trying to use his connections to minimize the charges. He's been calling in favors, pressuring prosecutors, trying to get James a plea deal that involves minimal jail time. But I have information about both of them: financial crimes, tax evasion, some business dealings that wouldn't survive scrutiny. If I release that information, both James and his father face federal charges on top of everything else. That's blackmail, yes, but effective blackmail. The kind that makes continuing to harass you more costly than walking away forever. Dante's expression was serious. I'm not talking about hurting him physically. I'm talking about making him and his father understand that any future contact with you results in complete destruction, not just of James, but of his entire family. That's extreme. So is stalking your ex-wife, threatening her at work, and attempting to assault someone to get to her. Dante's voice hardened. Sophia, men like James don't respond to reasonable consequences. They respond to overwhelming force. To knowing that continuing down their current path means losing everything they value. I thought about it. About James sitting in jail, stewing in his rage and humiliation. About his father using money and connections to minimize the consequences. About the possibility that in 2 years or 3 or 5, James would walk out and I'd be right back where I started, looking over my shoulder, sleeping with the lights on, afraid. If you do this, I said slowly, if you threaten to destroy his entire family, won't that make him angrier? Won't it make things worse? Not if the threat is credible enough. Not if he understands that touching you means destroying everything his father built, everything his family has. Family legacy matters to people like the Riveras, more than individual pride, more than revenge. And you can actually do that? Release information that would bring down his father? I have documentation of 12 years of tax fraud, money laundering through offshore accounts, bribes paid to city officials for zoning variances. Enough to send James's father to federal prison for 20 years minimum. I've had this information for a while. I keep files on powerful families in Chicago as insurance. I never plan to use it unless necessary. He met my eyes. This is necessary. Why do you even have that information? Because information is power, and power is protection. I told you my family has complicated history. Part of surviving that history meant knowing who could hurt us and having leverage to prevent them from trying. His expression softened. I know this isn't the neat, legal solution you probably wanted. But Sophia, I need you to understand something. The law failed you for 3 years. It let James manipulate and control and threaten without consequences. I'm offering you something the law can't certainty. Absolute certainty that he'll never bother you again. I stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere down there, James sat in a jail cell. Somewhere out there, his father was making calls, trying to fix the unfixable. Somewhere in between was my future, whatever shape it would take. If you do this, I said without turning around, what happens to me? Do I become complicit in blackmail? Do I become part of your world in ways I can't come back from? You're already part of my world. You have been since that day in the coffee shop. Dante came to stand beside me. But you're not complicit in anything. This is my decision, my action, my responsibility. You're just the person I'm protecting. That's all. That's not all, though, is it? He turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. No, it's not. Because somewhere along the way, protecting you became about more than just doing the right thing. It became about keeping someone I care about safe. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. Someone you what? Someone I'm falling in love with. His voice was quiet but certain. I know the timing is terrible. I know you're still healing, still figuring out who you are outside of what James made you. But Sophia, these past weeks with you have reminded me that there's more to life than business and obligations and maintaining power. You've made me want things I thought I was too damaged to want. My heart hammered. Dante, I'm not ready to. I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm just being honest about where I stand so you can make an informed choice about what comes next." He stepped back, giving me space. "I'm going to handle James and his father. That's not negotiable. But what happens between us after that? Whether we're just friends or something more? That's entirely your choice. No pressure, no expectations, no obligations." I looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, impossibly caring man who'd walked into my nightmare and refused to leave. A man who spoke about blackmail and federal charges as casually as other people discussed dinner plans. A man who'd held me while I cried and promised protection without asking for anything in return. A man who was falling in love with me while I was still learning to love myself again. "I care about you," I said quietly. "More than I probably should. More than is smart given everything. But Dante, I'm terrified of getting this wrong. Of confusing gratitude with affection. Of being so desperate for safety that I can't see clearly." Then we take it slow. We give you time to figure out what you're feeling without any pressure. And if you decide that what we have is just friendship based on extraordinary circumstances, then that's okay. I'll accept it. His smile was sad but genuine. But if you decide there's something real here, something worth exploring once you've had time to heal, then I'll be here, patient and waiting and hoping. You'd really wait? Even if it takes months or years? For you? Yes. The certainty in his voice made tears prick my eyes again. Do what you need to do with James and his father. Make sure they understand they need to leave me alone. And then I took a breath. And then give me time. Time to figure out who I am without James controlling my life. Time to know if what I feel for you is real or just trauma and gratitude mixed together. Can you do that? I can do that. The next morning, Catherine called with an update. James had been formally charged and denied bail. The arraignment had been swift and decisive, with the judge citing the GPS evidence, Victor's testimony, and James's history of violations as reason to keep him locked up pending trial. "He's looking at a minimum of 3 years, Catherine said. But Mr. Marcello had some information delivered to the DA this morning. Information about James's father's business practices. The DA is very interested in what he received." "What kind of information?" "The kind that suggests the Rivera family has been engaged in systematic fraud for over a decade. The kind that turns a straightforward domestic violence case into something much bigger." She paused. "Mr. Marcello also arranged for certain information to reach James's father directly. Information about what happens if the harassment of you continues. I can't share details, but I can tell you that Mr. Rivera Sr. called me this morning requesting a meeting to discuss ensuring his son understands the importance of moving forward with his life. He's going to make James leave me alone? That's what he's saying. Whether he can actually control his son from jail is another question. But the threat to the family legacy is apparently significant enough that he's willing to try." After the call ended, I sat in the apartment processing everything. Dante had done it. Had used his connections and information and power to ensure James understood that continuing to stalk me meant destroying everything his family had built. It wasn't the neat legal solution I'd imagined. It was messier, more complicated, existing in those gray areas Dante had mentioned. But it was also more effective than anything the legal system had provided in 3 years. My phone rang. "Dante." "Did Catherine tell you?" he asked. "Yes. James's father is going to make sure he leaves me alone. It's more than that. James's father signed a legally binding agreement this morning. If James violates the restraining order again after his release, if he makes any attempt to contact you directly or indirectly, if he so much as mentions your name in public, the information I have about their family's business practices goes directly to federal prosecutors." Both James and his father understood exactly what that means. Federal prison, 20 years minimum for the father, additional time for James on top of whatever he gets for the current charges. It's mutually assured destruction, which is the most effective kind of deterrence. "So, I'm really free. You're really free." His voice softened. "How does that feel?" I thought about it. How did it feel to know James couldn't touch me anymore? That his father was ensuring compliance? That the nightmare that had defined my life for years was finally truly over? Surreal, I admitted. Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like this can't actually be the end. It's the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. He paused. Sophia, I need to go back to New York for a few more days to finish the business I started. But when I get back, I'd like to take you to dinner. Not at my restaurant, not in your apartment, but somewhere normal. Somewhere we can just be two people getting to know each other without all the crisis and drama. Like a date? Like a date. If you're ready for that. No pressure if you're not. I smiled despite everything. I think I might be ready for that. Or at least ready to try. Then it's a date. I'll call you when I land in New York. After we hung up, I walked to the windows one more time. The city spread out before me, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere down there were people escaping their own nightmares, rebuilding their own lives, finding their own versions of safety. And somewhere in that city was my future, whatever shape it would take. For 3 years, I'd been drowning, gasping for air, reaching for help that never came. And then Dante Marcello had appeared and thrown me a lifeline I was finally learning to trust. He'd saved me, but more importantly, he'd given me the space and protection to save myself. I picked up my phone and texted him. Thank you for everything, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for protecting me without taking away my agency, for being patient while I figure out what comes next. I don't know where this goes, but I'm grateful you're here for the journey. His response came quickly. The privilege is mine. Sleep well, Sophia. You're safe now. Really, truly safe. I put down my phone and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I believed it. James was in jail. His father was ensuring compliance. The restraining order had real teeth now. The nightmare was over, and in its place was possibility. The possibility of healing, of rebuilding, of becoming someone I'd almost forgotten existed. The possibility of a future with Dante Marcello, or the possibility of discovering I was strong enough to build a future on my own. Either way, I was free. And that freedom, hard-won and blood-bought, was the most precious thing I'd ever owned. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.